Hello and welcome to another video. Just like usual, we are doing a state of PvP video. I've only done this a bajillion times over the past couple of years. Typically I just do them, so I felt like, might as well update it. There are some relatively good changes since the last time we've done one, so I would like to update people on that. And we are still, of course, waiting for some sort of rated mode. Rated is still not back in the game. It's been gone for, say, almost two years, or a little bit more than 2 years now. So that leaves a SWTOR without any sort of end-game PvP. Hopefully we can get something back, or maybe at least something beneficial out of 2025. So far, I think things are better, but we still have a ways to go. Excuse me, to go. So starting off the video now, State of PvP and SWTOR for 2025, even though it's not really been that long. We made great progress in healing the PvP community and boosting the population thanks to recent changes and reworked mercy system that's more forgiving. However, there's still room for improvement. The mercy rule, for instance, needs adjustments, especially when it comes to rewards for playing through a match that's pretty much already over, but it gets aborted. You get nothing currently. Though pretty much outside of that, I think the mercy rule is pretty much fine as is. And then the return to original group size restriction was a significant step forward, which is arguably probably one of the reasons why the Steam population has gone back up, because a lot of players have returned and a lot of players are playing PvP once again. But there's still a lot more that can be done. And there's quite a few different things that I want to talk about, and there's a lot of problems, of course, and obviously everybody still feels not so great about pruning, and potentially in the future I might go through and do each individual class if I get the time and do a talent reorder video, because certain classes definitely need a little bit more help than other ones, and other classes don't really need anything at all. Classes off the top of my head that really need something is Marauder and Assassin. I do think Assassin's talents need reordered more than they do need like an extra ability or anything like that. I do think Marauder needs a little bit more because it doesn't do that great of damage unless it's playing Carnage, and its healing on Annihilation is interesting, but I do feel like there should be a little bit more threat. And the same thing goes for Fury. Fury was just nerfed way too hard. It might have decent sustain, but I do feel like it should have its auto crit back. Not sure how to approach that, but that's something saved for a future video. Anyway, let's start with the main issues. So I want to have 5 issues here, or yeah, 5 issues. And I want to start with the problem. I'm going to show you an example. I don't really show you an example, but I'll talk about it in an example. And then I'll tell you the solution. Moving on to problem number 1. Unbalanced matches and role imbalances. Many matches end up without healers or tanks, leading to one-sided and frustrating experiences. Groups can often be unevenly distributed, intentionally and unintentionally. What I mean by that is that sometimes there will be a healer versus no healer, or a tank versus no tank, or vice versa, or even the experience of 2 healers versus 2 tanks. It's not an optimal thing, but also at the same time, a lot of this happens unintentionally, and sometimes it is intentional. I'll go into explaining that when we get to the example. Now, to get into an example, premades may intentionally decline, or a well-intentioned group with a healer or tank may have someone who doesn't want to PvP, yet queues up just to get into the match. AFKs also contribute to these issues, and without a ready check system, players can exploit these gaps, leaving the match unbalanced. So what I mean by here is intentionally declining is, for example, let's say you're in a group and somebody has to AFK and they don't make it back in time to take the pop, so chances are you're probably not going to take that pop. Majority of your group won't. that is, you know, not a bad thing, and I don't really see any issue with that, but it does negatively impact matchmaking. And most of your tank versus no tank or heal versus no heal match usually happens because of this. And then, you know, obviously a well-intentioned group, what I mean by that is, let's say somebody wants to PvP, let's just say the DPS player wants to PvP, but is in group with a tank and a healer because they're forming for a raid. They're just doing world content together. And that person wants to PvP and they queue up and the other two people don't want to, so they obviously decline. That's another example, and that's pretty innocent in my opinion. But really the solution around that is to queue up solo and then group up. That way that you're still queued and the other people never get queued in the first place. Obviously this is not perfect, but it would definitely help. And when it comes to AFKs, sometimes people will just AFK and queue, but forget that they're queued and will eventually get a pop. And when they get a pop, you know, it's not great. All these issues just combine into one, and when it comes to manipulating them, it can be pretty bad. Somebody could just sit there as a tank or a healer and just intentionally decline as much as they want. This was a common thing in solo ranked back in the day. So how can we fix it? Take inspiration from Guild Wars 2's queue system, which has a ready check feature before the match even starts. It also offers random map selections with a voting system, like a pie chart, so whoever votes the most likely to roll for that map, or whatever map you vote for the most. Ensuring no map really feels excluded, as sometimes it can roll on the map that has the lowest percentage. And if obviously nobody votes for it, then it wouldn't be selected. Implementing a similar system in SWTOR could remove the opportunity for manipulation and penalize people that will intentionally decline rather than leavers. Leavers will still be punished, obviously, and the mercy system could actually work a little bit better in that situation too, and ensure matchmaking is more fair. This overall would just be a net gain for the game as a whole. It would help alleviate a lot of the issues of unbalanced matches. A more immediate change could be to prevent groups from declining a match after queuing. Players who choose to group up should be required to play the match that they're assigned to, rather than avoiding it. And what I mean by this is that most of the issues are stemming from declining. At least a good majority of them are, especially for unbalanced matches. Basically forcing them into a match, just like how old ranked used to, would be a very good solution. And if they were to be actually AFK or malicious, obviously they would have to bite a lockout and or intentionally AFK in the match and risk getting reported. Now moving into problem number 2, backfilling. Backfilling is a necessary evil, but it often drags players into losing matches, which can be frustrating for those who are just trying to play a fun match. Oftentimes people don't have too much time, so getting into matches like these is really discouraging, especially if the queue time is quite long. For example, imagine a player stuck in a series of losses, and by the 5th one, their frustration reaches a boiling point, leading them to quit the game and go find something else to do. That forces someone else to backfill, and the cycle continues. There are many other reasons also for a backfill to occur, but this is something that happens quite often. And most people don't want to be trapped in a match that's already considered over or a loss. A way for them to fix this would be introduce a toggle for backfilling, just like what we have for flashpoints. Players who opt in could earn extra rewards for being willing to backfill, while those who don't want to deal with it can avoid it altogether. The mercy system could kick in for matches where backfilling is not an option. This would provide a more balanced experience for everyone involved. Now moving on to problem number 3, AFKing and giving up mentality. Players often resort to AFKing or throwing in the towel after one bad death. especially with the current medal system that can mislead them into thinking that they're still contributing when they're not. This is a loaded one. I'll just move on to the example so you can get a better idea of what I'm talking about, because it kind of seems a little misleading here, as the last two lines are a little confusing, but trust me, it'll make sense in a second here. All right, now to the example. A player encounters an experienced player or group, gets frustrated, and decides to AFK for the rest of the match, or simply gives up entirely, not realizing the match is still winnable with some effort. Unfortunately, I don't understand this one, mostly just because I keep PvP to actually fight other players, and I expect opposition. If there is no opposition, I'm just not having fun. Unfortunately, some other players do not see it that way, and they're a little bit too focused on the rewards and purely focused on winning when it's almost impossible, statistically speaking, to win every single match. Now, moving on to the solution, we work the medal system to better reward actual contribution. Players should need to meet certain thresholds to earn rewards for healing, damage, or tanking. Instead of rewarding players for just being there, make sure they have to actively participate in their role to get recognition. Also, consider shifting the focus from wins to objectives in the medal system. This would help players feel rewarded for their input, regardless of whether they win or lose, and it could help combat the emotional burnout some players face. What I'm talking about here is that typically people focus too much on the win, and it's not always possible to win. Sometimes your team will just be that outmatched, and that's just going to happen sometimes. The skill gap in this game is very massive, and it's only that way because there's not fundamental tools put into the game to teach you how to play better. And with that being a thing, and a lot of bad choices, bad gear options, and just a lot of point of failures in general, this is going to be a lot more common than it is in other PvP games. Now, covering problem number 4, lack of rated PvP. There's no clear end game for PvP players. Once you've reached a certain point, there's little left to challenge you, and this stunts the growth of hardcore PvP communities within SWTOR. We used to have ranked, it's been gone for quite a while now, and not having a end game for PvP just hinders the longevity of the game, the longevity of people that will be interested in PvP, much less alone just the game in general. Some players will only come to the game just for PvP, and if there is no PvP at the end of the road for them, they won't even bother to start in the first place. So they're definitely shooting themselves in the foot for this, and also at the same time, this is another route of monetization that they could activate. Now, to give an example, many PvPers just stop subscribing after they've fully geared the characters, since there's no real incentive to continue playing. PvE content often becomes the next best alternative. That's also just a missed opportunity for PvP. Typically for PvP, it's mostly free to play now. You do not need to remain a subscriber after you've hit max level. The main reason to subscribe right now is quality of life and just to get to max level. Outside of that, as long as you have artifact authorization on at least one character or the main character that you play, or account-wide artifact authorization, you pretty much don't need to subscribe unless you are going to buy like new augments or just for the quality of life in general. Most of the time, you just don't need it. PvP used to be a limit of 5 war zones per character per week. That's no longer a thing, and when you group, you could bypass that. Now it's all free to play, and there is no rated, so there is no reason to currently subscribe. Now, to get to a solution, introduce a ranked system like the one I discussed in a previous video. The addition of ranked PvP would create a sense of progression, reward skilled players, and bring a fresh competitive element to PvP. That video will be linked in the top comment and in the description if you're interested to watch that. It would also provide new opportunities for monetization through cosmetics or rewards tied to ranks. Obviously, if you watch the video, you'll get more information about that, but also at the same time, it's mainly monetization through subscribing to play the mode. And then once you're not subscribed anymore, you would still get your rewards, but the main thing is having a subscriber just to play the mode. That would give a lot more money, just as in general, for PvPers. Like, that's an unmonetized section of the game right now, and that could easily change. At the long run, this would enhance the PvP experience and keep the community engaged. Look at what happened with Final Fantasy. They improved their PvP system after realizing a need for a competitive structure. They kind of like gutted their PvP community and eventually realized, hey, people actually like PvP. We should have some rated. And when they brought it back, I guess, brought a new version of it / new system, actually seen a significant uprise in players, and a lot of people, first time players, actually came to the game just because there was actually a PvP end game for them to do. Now to get into problem number 5, role limitations and backfilling. Role restrictions often cause problems, especially with tanks. Matches can feel unfun when there are too many tanks and when backfilling causes an unbalanced team composition. Now, to give an example of that, a match has 2 tanks on one team and the other team has just 1 tank and a healer. If a player leaves, the backfill might add another tank, leading to a team composition that is difficult to overcome even for seasoned players. What I mean by this is potentially having a 3 tank match. Doesn't matter who you are, you're most likely not going to enjoy that match. Tank's power is incredible, and I do mean overpowered team composition. Obviously, this isn't always a winning one, but it is definitely a very annoying one. And it definitely leads to a lot of new players' frustration. Now, how to fix this? Enforce a hard limit of 1 tank per team and don't allow backfilling to add more tanks. The exception should be when there are 2 pre-mades on the team who are running a tank roles. This would balance the tank representation and allow players to focus on their role without feeling overwhelmed by an overpowered team composition. This is obviously simplifying it. For the most part, it isn't always a winning one. As I say that, it is a annoying one. And for new players, it is very much so an overpowered thing. Overall, coming into final thoughts, PvP and SWTOR has definitely made improvements, but there's still a lot of work to be done. With these adjustments, we could see a much more enjoyable, balanced PvP experience for all players, whether they're solo or grouped. I'd also love to see some changes to combat itself, whether through balance tweaks, new talents, or better set bonuses for healers. And thanks for checking out my video. I know that I rant about SWTOR every couple of months. It's kind of like I'd say like almost like a 6-month occurrence, but I felt like I should update you guys on the state of PvP. If you guys enjoyed, feel free to leave a comment, subscribe, like, anything like that. I don't normally ask for any of that, but you guys have shown a lot of support lately, and I really appreciate that. And it definitely motivates me to make more videos. If you guys have any suggestions or want to see a specific video or just want me to redo one of the guides, as I said, you know, I'm more than open to doing those. I am, again, totally open to do like the crash course guides I did. I actually think that's a little bit more chill for me to do, because it doesn't take a lot of editing and I can just do it all while I'm still in game and explaining firsthand. Anyways, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll catch you guys again sometime soon.